Well, welcome to the podcast, John. How are you today?
Chris, it's a pleasure to be here, buddy.
Why don't you tell everyone where we're at?
We're here in Atlanta, Georgia. Great to be in the ATL.
The ATL, that's right. And beautiful hotel here, part of the Marriott Autograph Collection. And we tried to sneak up to their rooftop area to record this podcast, which had this beautiful scenic view of Atlanta. And technically, the roof wasn't open yet. So what happened, John?
Yeah, we were the cool kids trying to get into the club. We didn't know the club wasn't open yet. And we got in, and I guess they had some security cameras on. And
yeah, I think we got busted on the security cameras. So they kicked our podcast out. We don't have a huge budget like some of the other orthodontic podcasts that probably would have gotten the rooftop. So now we're here in the lobby. So please excuse people checking in. But yeah, we had a wonderful dinner last night, didn't we, John?
We did. It was good to meet up.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we've met in person before, but I think it's the first time we've maybe spent some quality time together. And I learned a lot about you, and you have a really interesting background. John, tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so, it's the immigrant story. My parents were from Vietnam, and in 1975, during the fall of Saigon, they fled, communism, oppression on these rickety boats. And, our family came here with pennies in their pockets, and all they really had were these seeds, these Asian seeds, because we were farmers back there. And so when I grew up, we did what I call ghetto farming on the east side of LA. We were in the city, and anywhere there was a patch of open land, they would just start planting. And we didn't know any better. We didn't know that wasn't legal, right?
Yeah.
But when you're driving through Southern California, there's on the side of the freeway, there's always these kids selling oranges and lemons and those types of things. And that's what I did, early on. And it was a crazy experience. I think you learn a lot going through those types of things.
So you guys were literally like roadside, almost like with like a vegetable stand, right?
Yeah. And you learn at an early age sort of what makes people tick, what gets people to buy, buying decisions. You learn about like commodities and what that is. And you learn about how to separate yourself by being different, right? Yeah. But, eventually over time, we raised enough money to have our own plot of land, and our house kind of eventually became this place for other immigrants fleeing other countries.
Oh, wow.
Cambodians, Laotians, and we kind of became this halfway home for refugees.
Wow.
And it was a great learning experience, because you learn a lot about no matter who you are or where you're from, there's always a way to contribute.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And farming wise, you learn that no matter what happens, you still farm, you still work. If it's rain, drought, doesn't matter. The other thing I learned is that I really hated farming. So the story goes that as soon as I got to college, in the 90s, the first thing I did was I dropped out. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a engineer by training, and so that was when I joined my first tech startup, and that was in the late 90s.
So what college did you drop out of?
UCLA.
Yeah,
first week of college.
Wow.
Yeah,
and coming from an Asian family, like how did that sit?
My mom almost killed me.
Really?
Yeah. But I told her, I said, Mom, if you let me drop out, I'll be the Asian doctor's son you always wanted.
And she went for that.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, well, she bought my pitch, and eventually she got what she wanted. But Chris, we were talking yesterday during dinner. You want to hear a little bit about my tech story. So, we had this idea at the time that the internet was something that was new and was booming, and if maybe we found a way to create an online platform for vendors to offer their products, we had this thesis that maybe consumers would go on, find what they want, click a button, and then it would show up at their houses. And I think we call it online shopping now.
Yeah. But, yeah. I mean, it sounds like Amazon, right?
Yeah.
But this was way before. This was 1999,
Yeah,
right?
This was 98, 99. I think Amazon was trying to do it too. But
they were selling books.
Yeah. But we learned a lot, during that time. I mean, number one, you learn that the power of ideas, the power of venture capital, how fast things can grow. The company did make Entrepreneur Magazine's list of 100 hottest growing companies.
Wow.
And, I was 19 years old, driving around in Ferraris, Lamborghinis.
What?
You know, yeah.
I mean, that's a crazy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And 19 and
booking 737s for 400 of my friends to fly to the
that's insane.
West Coast to party. But
wow.
The most important thing though that happened was the tech bust.
Yeah, the bubble burst.
Yeah, because the bubble burst was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because at that point you learn that the things you own don't own you, and what you define as success should be defined by you, not everybody else.
Yeah.
So at that point I went back to school and started, finishing up my degree in electrical engineering.
Yeah, and so you went back to UCLA, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And so what was the School of Engineering like? I mean, was it similar to dental school?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I'd say no, it's actually completely different. When I first got to dental school, I was actually a little bit shocked. I didn't take my first multiple choice test since the SAT until I got to dental school, right?
Wow.
And everything was just about, is the answer A, B, C, or D?
Mm-hmm.
In engineering, I mean, most of my tests were just a blank piece of paper, right? And the professor would write, a question on the board, and your job was just to derive the answer. And I remember there was this one final, I will never forget it. The professor wrote on the board that you have an electron hanging from a weightless string. And beneath the electron is a magnet that oscillates on and off at a certain rate. Please derive the equation that explains how the pendulum movement of the electron will behave.
I already failed this test.
And
I'm out.
And what he was really, the answer of those questions were what we would call Maxwell's equations, which is the equations that define electromagnetism and how electricity and magnets interact. That's why all of our iPhones charge through magnets, right?
Like cheat charging.
Yes, exactly. And so what he was doing is he was helping us derive the answers to these equations, as opposed to sometimes how we're taught in dentistry is, this is the answer, just memorize it.
Yeah, more like spoon-fed the answers, right?
And I will tell you, I scored like a 8% on that test. The curve was 10%. So I got like a C minus. The A was like 15, 18%.
Wow.
And I think, going to, we're speaking a lot of, orthodontists here. I think that is life though. If you can go into life or business knowing 20%, that's an A.
Yeah.
Right? Because the world is unknown. And I think when I graduated from dental school and orthodontic school, and we were just so used to A, B, C, D, or E, and then you open your practice and you're like, well, where's the rule book here? Where are the multiple choice questions here? And there is no multiple choice options.
Yeah.
You got to define it. And I think for the innovators out there, I think it's okay if you don't know all the answers. If you have an inkling, you have a 20% idea, but you're so passionate about it, pursue it. That's an A+.
So do you think your engineering mindset really sort of spurned that innovative attitude and trying to derive the answers of life?
I think the engineering mindset, the immigrant mindset, the not being scared to fail, not being scared to put yourself out there was what motivated me to take the risk that I did. Right?
So what happened when you finished your engineering degree? Did you go immediately to dental school from there?
No, I actually got a job at Boeing.
Wow.
And gone to aerospace, and it was an amazing ride in itself.
So you were an aerospace engineer?
Yes. We worked.
That's crazy.
I worked on some top secret military things. I guess it's the time frame's been long enough now. I'll tell you. I worked on the Air Force One.
What?
Designing some things for Air Force One. And the point I'm making though is that venture capital is great. Startups are great because you see what the power of ideas and capital that's willing to invest into those ideas can do, right? But with aerospace engineering, you find out what the power of people and vision and possibilities can do. I mean, Boeing was doing things like putting man on the moon, satellites, right? Lasers.
Wow,
I mean, it was crazy. There were 100,000
sort of infinite possibilities.
Yeah, 100,000 engineers just thinking about how we can do things differently, right? So that was a great ride. But as I said, my mom one day came up to me and said, John, you remember what you promised me when you dropped out?
It all comes back.
And Mama never forgets. So I dropped out of engineering and applied to a couple of dental schools. And fortunately, UCLA admitted me. And I went back to UCLA again a couple of years later to do dentistry.
Yeah. So what was dental school like at UCLA?
And again, when I told you, dental school was completely same school, but completely different mindset, right? And I think, don't get me wrong, I love dentistry, but in engineering, it was a lot about what was possible. You were expected to ask questions. You were expected to challenge the status quo, because if the iPhone 10 years from now was the same iPhone as it was today, there's something wrong. In dentistry, every time I asked a question, I kind of felt like, I don't know, I felt like I was different. I felt like people didn't like that,
Yeah. So you felt like dental school, you were just more, this is what you do. This is what you do to maybe fit in and learn the program. And
I felt a lot to shut up, answer the questions, and move on.
Yeah.